Welcome to the Culture Keepers, the podcast where culture and success collide. I'm your host, Lauren Beers, and I'm here with our Culture Keepers. In each episode, we'll explore the dynamic intersection of athletic excellence and culture within a program. From the court to the locker room, we'll uncover the topics that culture can teach us about leadership, teamwork, resilience, and of course, championships. Whether you're a sports enthusiast, a business, or a professional, or just someone who loves winning, this podcast is for you. Join us as we dive into the strategies that drive success both on and off the field. Let's get started and create your culture. All right, we got a special guest tonight, guys. We got a special guest tonight. I want to welcome Priscilla Hernandez. Priscilla Hernandez, welcome. Why don't you talk a little about how you know us, your accolades? Let us know more about you.
Hi, I'm Priscilla. I played for every single one of these coaches on this podcast. I'm very grateful for all the moments I had with them. My accolades would probably contain some state championships, athlete of the year, volleyball player of the year, and first team all day. I played at the University of Miami for 4 years. I was second team all ACC for 2 years. And then I went to NC State and played my final COVID year with my little sister Saskia. And I was second team all ACC there as well. I believe I currently hold the record in digs per set at NC State. And I think I'm top 10 at digs per set at University of Miami still.
Priscilla, probably my favorite.
Hernandez.
Favorite. One of my favorite. Yes. No, something. I'll be blacklisted from all the lists. One of my favorite things I like to tell people about you, I don't know, whenever you come up in conversation all the time, I talk about you every week, is how you were supposed to be the goalie or one of the goalies at University of Miami and had a coaching change. And so you called Coach Kendall and said, hey, I've had a change. Can I play volleyball instead? So I mean, I just think that, that just speaks volume of your athleticism and your skill and all of those things growing up. Obviously, your volleyball coaches helped you.
Obviously.
But I think that's pretty amazing that you got to choose between the sport you wanted at a very, very high collegiate level. So
Yeah,
I think that I said it for you.
Thanks. Yeah, I honestly don't really, I forget about it sometimes, honestly, but I think going with the theme of today, mental toughness and like realizing what it is to be mentally tough, I made that decision. Obviously, it was very hard, but the conversation that I had with the coach was if I can't 100% be there and like fully in it and working as hard as I can for you, like I don't want to be there for you. And that's hard to do as an athlete, knowing like you're going to be on a Division I team and there's so much uncertainty that comes with giving up that opportunity that for me, it was really hard, but I had a great support system throughout the whole thing. Obviously, I knew that I could always ask any one of these people on this podcast for advice, and I kind of went with it, and it turned out really well for me.
Amazing. So yeah, definitely our subject for the evening is mental toughness. So many people have different ideas or thoughts or even emotions about mental toughness. So tonight, what we're going to talk about is mental toughness, examples of mental toughness, and just really grasp in on how successful programs and cultures use mental toughness in their day-to-day talk. So with that said, what does mental toughness look like?
I think being able to maintain your composure in a tough situation, whether it's sports or life, things are getting rough. Things are getting a little bit, I don't know, out of control. Specifically about sports, if we're losing, maybe we had a big lead and they're starting to catch up. And we need some people on the court, on the sideline to be able to take a breath and maintain our composure and kind of fight through a really difficult situation, hopefully come out of the other side of it. But we're not going to throw a fit or have these overly emotional reactions and responses to things just because it's not going our way. And so for me, that's a really big key component for mental toughness.
So one of the things in my recollection of being involved in coaching Priscilla over all the years, club and Westminster, was that. So I think we've said this before to each other, Priscilla, sometimes your mental toughness was over the top in your young years, where I won't say you didn't necessarily care what your teammates thought, but you were so passionate about being great and winning that you didn't care what they thought. You're going to voice your opinion. So that's not a negative. It's just an observation. And where that came from, where did that come from? And then for it to grow, and I think you refined it over the years where you got better at meeting them where they're at and not just jumping on them, So I'd be really interested in hearing that, because I think what Julie said is right. Mental toughness includes resilience and how you respond to adversity and influencing your team to come with you on that little journey. I think it's all those things. So I'm kind of curious where you learned that. Was it observation? Was it teaching? Was it God given? I don't know what all the answers are, but I know it's hard to find and hard to duplicate.
It's actually a little bit of everything. I think I was definitely gifted by God, a little bit of toughness in general. Just, I think also the way I was raised, the way I was coached by you guys, all the Monday meetings we had to emphasize what it means to be mentally tough and to be a good teammate. I still tell this story all the time. I know I was very competitive when I was young. I was get very angry to the point of no return. And Coach Don and Coach Carr pulled me aside and were like, "Hey, like we need to talk to you." And I was like, "Oh no, this is never good." And they told me, they were like, "Listen, we know you love your team. We know it's not in bad. Like you're not doing it to be mean, but like it's never you guys. Like it's we. It's not I'm doing this and you're not doing this. It's like we are not doing this. Even if you personally are doing it and you think that you're doing it and you don't want to say include yourself in the fact that the team is not doing well in passing or serving, it's we are not doing well, because if the team loses a point, everybody loses a point. It doesn't matter who makes the error. And that has stuck with me through everything. Like since I think I was 13 years old when you told me that. And through everything I've ever done now, I'm working with a group project. I mean, I'm in law school, so I work a lot with people and I have to be very personable and all these things. And I'm like, you know what? Like this person made a mistake, but guess it reflects on me, because we're in a project. So it's really gone throughout my whole life now of thinking about that one thing that you guys talked to me about. And I have a very, very bad memory. So the fact that it stuck with me is pretty impressive. But as I went through my years, that same thing, we over me, stuck with me. But I also realized it's not someone who can be calm in the storm. It's not someone who can understand that it's usually the person that's the most mentally tough is the leader, and more or less, because they're able to hold all of the weight on their shoulder. I think it's someone who can be okay with people not liking them, but people still respect them. So I actually experienced that a lot at NC State. Like I had some girls who I don't think like me very much, but I still got voted on the leadership committee. I still got voted as captain, like because they respected what I stood for. And I always made sure I was just like, hey, my fault. Because girls sometimes can't handle the fact that they make the error. And it really holds heavy on them, like, oh my gosh, it was my fault. We lost that point. So I made an emphasis of like, you know what? I don't care if they think it was my fault. Even when it is my fault, I'm still going to say it, because in volleyball, there's going to be 100 mistakes and it's okay. So I would make it a point to be like, hey, my fault, my fault. And people would be like, yeah, you know what? Your fault, your fault. And that was me being mentally tough, because the whole team thinks it's my fault, but I know it's not my fault. And I think deep down they knew it wasn't their fault, my fault either, but that's what helped them in the moment. I also think being mentally tough is being able to like prioritize a lot of things. I think in college is something that I realize a lot more. Girls tend to prioritize other things, and being able to say no to things and really like focus on your craft is really important.
I like that. And I think we honestly say, how do we find another Prissy? And I think that's maybe one of the best compliments you can get as an athlete and a leader. And we're looking for those qualities. And sometimes I think you did a good job defining it. I think sometimes that's a little hard to define, so that other athletes can say, well, what is that? What does that mean? And so we spend a lot of time reading, thinking, asking questions, observing, trying to figure out how to quantify it so that it can be taught. And maybe somebody else picks up. You never know what might be said by who and where that just clicks in. But anyway, we're working hard at trying to be real good at putting it in language they can understand, and then it's a quest of theirs to become that mentally tough athlete.
You know, Priscilla, one of the things that you just said that stuck with me, because I don't know, I agree with it completely, is you kind of have to be okay with people not liking you, but still respecting you. And I think the best leaders, whether it's sports or business, you have to have some thick skin. And my goal is not to be everybody's best friend, everybody's favorite. But yeah, be respected and be professional and kind and nice to everybody. But everybody's not going to like you. And that's a hard place to be in sometimes for people, because I don't know, a lot of people care about being liked. And I think that if you're at a leadership position, that's a really hard thing because people are not going to agree with you. Um, People are not going to like everything that you do. And you have to be able to kind of just shrug that off and say, okay, well, this is what's best for the program. And as long as, my core staff agrees or supports the decision, if they don't agree, then, all right, we can go with it, kind of a thing. But yeah, that's a big deal. Like being okay with not being liked by everybody at, the risk or the sacrifice of this is what's best for the team right now. Good one.
One more thing I'll say on like what would define mental toughness. If I had to I train girls now, and the thing I tell them is like, you have to be okay with your role. Like your role is your role and it doesn't mean it can't change. But if you want to be a defensive specialist, you want to be in there in defense, guess where your role starts? On the bench. And then it ends up being a serving sub. And then a serving sub turns into you make digs as a serving sub and you can become a defensive specialist. And as a defensive specialist, then you become a libero. Like it has to start somewhere. You can't just look at, I want to be libero, I'm going to be libero. Like there's 0 to 100 and they forget that there's 99 other numbers before that you have to be able to be okay with sitting on the bench. I mean, Cece sat on the bench for a while and she still talks about her best day of her life cheering the first day championship. Not many people would be okay with that. When their other sister is on the court playing super hard, like those things are really hard to be okay with, especially as people who play club volleyball, who pay a lot of money to play club volleyball, who do lessons, do all of these things, and then I'm on the bench. Well, guess what? You're on a bench of a team that's nationally ranked. You're on a bench of a team who competes for a state championship every year. That's an honor in itself. So I think a big thing is realizing the environment that you're in, being okay with it, and then trying to thrive in that role that you're in. That's really hard and really, really hard for young girls, especially. So I think if you can be able to do that in that role, you're mentally tough.
It's a great observation, Priscilla. Lots of wisdom there.
So, moments of mental toughness. From a coach's perspective, and Priscilla, now that you've been both an athlete and a coach, as a coach, how do you incorporate the mental toughness that you learned yourself into maybe your athletes or even your everyday life? As you said, you're studying to be a lawyer. How do you incorporate that?
We might have some disagreements here, but I learned my junior year, I actually struggled a lot. I struggled a lot in my first 2 years at UM, just passing in general, because it was different. The way that it wasn't taught the same structure, but it was just hard for me the level of play and everything just changed for me. And a coach told me there's a learning phase and then there's a competition phase. When we're in practice, no matter what, as much as I'm the biggest competitor of all times, I hate losing. Like I can't, no matter what you put in front of me, I have to win it. It doesn't matter if I'm rolling a dice, like I'm going to be upset if I lose. So to me, this was really, really hard for me to understand and be okay with passing absolutely awful in some drills. And before practice, I would be like, this drill, I want to be in my learning phase. Like I am in a learning environment. If I pass awful, it's okay because this is what I'm working on. But when we're competing on sixes, like that's my competition phase. If I pass bad there, then that's a testament to what my passing looks like right now. So I think giving athletes the environment to be okay with making errors, because it's hard. The pressure's on. You need to be like, I need to be a passer. And I apply that now in being mentally tough because like I have to study for exams and my exam is my whole entire grade. Like we only have one exam the whole year and it's 10% is our attendance and participation, and 90% of our whole year, our whole semester is our final grade. So as I'm studying, oh gosh, I did awful on this quiz. I did awful on this quiz. I did awful on this quiz. And I'm studying for 10 to 12 hours a day of just one subject. So being okay with like, I suck right now at this. Like I know nothing. Why have I been in this class for a whole semester? It's just really difficult to learn something and then apply it. So I do still tell myself like I'm in my learning stages. Like I'm in my learning stages. I need to be okay with getting a 20 out of 100% on this quiz because I'm not there yet. But I know 2 days before the exam, like this is my competition phase. Like I have to buckle down and I have to be good now. So it means sacrificing my social life. My last semester, I had 5 final exams. I didn't hang out with my family for like 3 weeks. Then my family means everything to me. So everybody knows like that's a long time. So I was like bunkered down, like this is important to me. And it's really hard to be alone studying, doing terrible. I had a mental breakdown, of course, because who doesn't after studying so long? But I think what it looks like is being okay with failure. And I know we say that all the time. And I when I train my girls, I say all the little Julie phrases. And when they go to Westminster, they answer right away. And I'm like, oh, it's so nice because you know exactly what I'm saying. Simple is repeatable. Like there are no little things, all those, because it's true. And it still like applies to every single thing of my life. Like, there are no little things. And every time I do something in my house, I'm like, oh, and I do it not so well. And I'm like, I have to go back because that's not a little thing. Because if I do it, then someone else is going to do it. And then it's just going to be a spiral, like our locker room. I leave my shoes on the floor. Someone else is going to see my shoes and be like, Prissy's our leader. If Prissy has her shoes on the floor, we're going to put our shoes on the floor. It's just a little spiral effect. And I just being able to be okay with failure, I think, is my biggest thing of how I apply it in general. Like my whole life from when I played to now, being okay with not being so great sometimes. And being who I am, it's hard, but I think I know it's doable because I've done it.
I like that, Prissy. I don't think there's anything I would necessarily disagree with. I think we have also added this thought about being okay with failure. So, Kobe Bryant, before he passed away, he did a little podcast I was listening to, and he said there's no such thing as failure. And his premise was, which I think is right on, if you don't score 30 points, but you learn about yourself and why you didn't, if you turn the ball over, but you figure out why you did that, all those things, if we make a pass that shanks into the crowd, but I learned that my platform was angled the wrong way, that's not failure. That's the process of learning. And so athletes get really hung up on outcomes. And I think every time I hear that, I can make a case for saying that's not failure if you learn. Now, if you just keep doing it and repeating it over and you're not learning, maybe on some level, I guess that might be. But he said in his life, there's no failure. There's just the process. And I'm not going to make all my shots, but I'm going to learn why. And so I like that because working with the teams that I work with, boy, the kids really get hung up on the outcome and defining that as failure and have a hard time just recognizing that process.
I think if and when you're leading a team or group of people, if you can get them to understand and buy into this whole learning thing and the process, I think that you're going to have a much more long-standing series of success year after year after year. Because they get like, okay, same thing, like, oh, my angle was the wrong way. Now we're really focused on, you'll hear us say things in our gym and say like, hey, really nice pass, or say, hey, that's a great angle. Hey, you tracked really well. Hey, that's a really good move. And our language starts to turn into the process or the technique rather than the end result. And so I think that's really good for growth and sustaining at a high level, because you really change your attitude and your mind to the result wasn't okay. And really the truth is the bad results become fewer and fewer because you're really so focused on doing it right that more right things are being stacked in a row, that you're just going to be better. And if we can keep our mind to, hey, I'm learning, it's okay. My angle was the wrong way. Okay, next time, hey, you fixed that. Good for you. Then I think the athletes or the people on your team, whether adults or kids, they start to understand that it's okay. I know it's okay if I mess up as long as I'm really trying to make the change. And I think people are more excited about learning and trying new things when you're celebrating the attempt or celebrating the technique, because nobody wants to mess up. And especially if you're new at something, it can be embarrassing. If you're not super tough, you're worried about what people think. But if your leader is encouraging you and saying, hey, good try, good angle, I saw you made a change, rather than like, oh, you didn't hit the target. Oh, you didn't hit the target. Wrong, wrong, wrong. I think you're going to have a lot more people on your team interested in trying to make a change, because you're really focused on what happens before the result, the process.
I actually have this thing that I tell my girls. Don't get mad at me because I train some of your girls. I'm like, guys, it's just volleyball. I tell Saskia this all the time. I'm like, it's just volleyball. It's just a ball going to a target. It's not the end of the world. You have a bad game. I mean, I still remember my worst game ever, and I'll never forget it in college, but that's just because I'm a little bit competitive. But I'm like, it's just volleyball. By the time you finish the game, you're going to hang out with your family. Like, the stress that people put on passing the ball to target makes it that much more difficult to be successful. Like, I had to literally physically go like this, like before every pass, and like shimmy my arms because I would get so stiff. I stood straight up before I would pass the ball because I would literally be a plank of wood. And then my coaches in NCC would be like, you can't stand like that. I'm like, listen, first of all, if it ain't bronc, don't fix it. It's working, so let's leave it. Second of all, like, this is who I am. This is how I pass. Like, sometimes you got to give and take. And we tried to fix some stuff and it just didn't work for me. So I went back to what it was. But that's one of my things. I'm like, it's just volleyball. On to the next point. On to the next one. You don't forget about the last one, but you also don't let it hinder the next one. The last thing I was going to say about being mentally tough is being able to have really tough conversations with people. I mean, I obviously had Luca at NC State won an Olympic gold medal. So imagine going up to that coach and being like, you're not doing this right. And he's like, what do you mean I'm not doing this right? And I'm like, Luca, it's just the truth. Like, our team feels this, and I'm essentially the team representative. So I'm sorry. Like, it's hard because I know he's upset about it. And obviously, I don't want to be the one having that conversation, but sometimes hard conversations need to be had. And with your best players, with your head coach, with the person that's last in the roster. But tough conversations are the only way that teams can succeed. Because if no communication is there, then really everybody's just kind of working around each other and not with each other. And it's really hard to be able to like do that.
I agree. These are some really, really key items when it comes to mental toughness. Hard conversations, being able to accept failure. Now, we've seen lots of those moments, and we've even had those moments ourselves. And so I want to ask, when was a time that you saw, and maybe it was even yourself, a great example of mental toughness? Because mental toughness isn't only for the athletes. I also feel it's for the coaches. Like, do I call my timeout? Do I make that sub? Do I pull her? Do I put someone else in? We have to be secure in the decisions we make. And I believe that's mental toughness as well. So when was a time that you saw a great example of mental toughness?
I kind of think in our career, and I say our because we've all coached together, we've been really blessed to have some incredible athletes that a lot of coaches never get to coach girls like that. And I can think of people in the volleyball world and in my years of coaching softball that showed that kind of mental toughness that you're talking about. Brittany Husk was the best player I ever coached in softball, and I could give you a list of amazing things that she did. Mental toughness, nothing ever rattled her. You never saw body language. She never talked back. She was as competitive as anybody, and she was the best softball player I ever coached. And then in our state championship that Priscilla was on the team, the way it started out, our big outside hitter, her name was Kia, and she started out just pounding balls. And we won, and we took the lead. And then as the match went on, I guess fatigue setting in, she kind of disappeared. And, I don't know. I just think it was fatigue. Maybe it was not. Maybe it was something mental toughness with her. But in one of our timeouts, Priscilla kind of took the timeout and said, I wasn't even in. I didn't know exactly even what all was said. I can guess. But then she just took the game over. I remember playing in the back row because we hadn't rotated around yet. And she's demanding the ball and getting kills and hitting balls over and pushing balls over and scoring points. And she's not in the front row yet. And it kind of just kept the momentum on our side for us to win that match. And that was, everybody could have just given up. Everybody could have pouted. Everybody could have, we got so close. And we've done that a zillion times over the years. But that one really stood out. That's why we say, where do we find another Priscilla? That when the game was on the line, she's telling her team, give me the ball. We are not losing this match. That kind of attitude.
Yeah, that was actually the story I was going to tell because
Oh,
I don't really think about, I don't really know another story, but I do remember that because everybody's like, that was the most incredible speech. And I'm like, I truly don't even know what I said. Like, I don't remember what I told them that day. I mean, I know I told them, like, this is our last chance, of course, all the other things we were going to say. I mean, we had a lot of seniors that year, and the chances we were going to have a team as athletic, as hardworking, as close as we did that year was going to be rare, especially because I only had one more year. So I went up to Quinn, who was my best friend at the time, and I was like, listen, I really don't care what Julie tells you. Like, you're going to set me every single ball. Like, and she was like, and I was like, I don't care if she gets mad at you. Like, you're going to set me every ball. And she was like, okay. And I was like, okay, that's all that matters. But she knew, I mean, if someone's telling me that, I'm like, absolutely. You want the ball? Take it. I'm going to give it to whoever wants the ball at the moment. And in my eyes, like, when I was playing college, it was like, when a girl's looking at me to serve at me, I'm like, let's go. You want to serve at me? Come on, let's tango. Like, I'm so here for it. I mean, at one point I was passing like the whole court at and I was like, you're not going to get away from me. Like, I'm going to pass the ball no matter where you try and serve it. But that's just my personality. So it's hard for me to like see other girls in that personality because I always took that role on all the teams that I was on. I did. I don't really know. I mean, I've seen some really cool things happen. Like, I have a few friends that played pro and who ended up stop playing pro. Like, that's hard and it's very mentally tough to go to different countries and all those things. But yeah, that was the story I was going to tell because it was the best day of my life. Besides when my nieces and nephews were born.
I don't know that it's as much a speech as it was the vibe, the body language, everybody could feel it, kind of undefinable, but everybody knew what it was and everybody could see it. What word would you give it? I don't know. That's hard. What word? But if you ask me, yeah, for sure I could see it. For sure I knew. So sometimes I think those new Rocky speeches maybe are a little overrated because not everybody can do that, but you just changed what was going on in the court along with what you said. But more than that, you backed it up by the way you played. That's mental toughness. That's, demanding. I think that's mental toughness right there.
I think we all have that same story. I remember that game, and I don't know if it was a timeout or in between. I remember it as going into set 5. I don't know. It all blended, I guess. And we were sitting on the bench thinking like, okay, what lineup do we go with? Because here we are, set 5. I remember you coming over, was like, I've got this timeout or this huddle. I was like, all right, go, sure, whatever, do it. And then we came back and we won that. But yeah, that was obviously a very memorable day for a lot of us. The other thing, talking about mental toughness, of all the people to have on today, Priscilla, you're the one. I remember you said that after you finished at NC State, Coach Luca called you for whatever birthday or something, and that he said something along the lines of, Priscilla, you were the greatest leader and you changed the culture. We didn't even know what we needed, but we needed you and you changed the culture of NC State. And I think that is insane. I think that is incredible. I tell everybody all the time, you are the greatest leader we ever had. It was a journey helping you get there. As I kind of mentioned before, but you got to have those athletes that are real fiery and a little sassy, sometimes borderline out of line a little bit, but that we can reel it in and say, all right, really good information delivery could be better, you know? And so I think that you really took that very seriously and took it to heart, and it mattered so much to you that you became the greatest leader that we've ever had in 20 years at Westminster. And then even more amazing, not that I think the NC State staff is better than our staff. However, the coach that won a gold medal for the Olympics said basically the same thing to you. So I think that's incredible and a testament to you and your toughness and your leadership and really your unselfishness to be whatever the team needs. Like you knew I can take the trash, I can take the heat, I can take the yelling, I can take all of the weight because I'm tough enough. And if that means that I'm wrong sometimes, whatever, give me the blame, I'll take it. Let's just go win. And that's going to be the best we can be. And so, man, amazing, amazing. Good for you.
A big part also is people prioritize their own success, like their own passing percentage, their own hitting percentage, their own assists per set, and they're looking at the stats of comparable to everybody else in the ACC or the NCAA, but they don't realize like that doesn't matter. Like it's okay to be bad, but if your team still needs you to win when you're bad, that's when you know you are doing something right. I thought after my game against FSU, one of them, I was like, oh, they're definitely going to pull me tomorrow. They're going to switch me. I played so bad. I passed so awful. Like, that was one of the worst games of my life. The next day, they're like, oh, Priscilla, like, obviously you're the bear, whatever. And I went up to Casey and Kendall. I was like, I really thought you guys were going to bench me. They looked at me and they were like, are you crazy? That was never even a thought. Like, that didn't even cross our mind. And to me, that was the biggest compliment. Because as someone who, I obviously am very competitive, I want to do well, but winning is the most important. But when we don't win and I don't do well, then it's like, okay, here goes the hammer. It's going to come down on me because I'm the leader. I'm the one that they're looking at. And he was like, that wasn't even a thought. So I was like, wow, like that means so much to know that you have the security in your coaches and your teammates that they don't want to even not see you on the court, no matter how bad you do. So being able to be mentally tough and the fact of like you sucked, but your team still won and girls are crying in the bus because they sucked. It's like, get over it. You just won the game. That's all that matters. The only thing you could do now is be better tomorrow or be better in practice. And that's not emphasized enough in teams that it's okay that you suck. What matters is we're winning as a team because that's what we're here for, is to win. Like you're not going to be good every day. So being mentally tough enough to be okay with being super bad one day and still having that W in the column of your schedule is pretty cool.
Yeah, if you're around, like all that stuff you talk about, like it still goes on every single day at our practices. What would you say? How much time should a coach be spending on this, the training and teaching and the mental toughness aspect of, like, where does that rank in comparison? We know we got to be doing our drills. We know we got to be playing some sixes. We got to be on the court competing. But what about this? So a lot of coaches I deal with, they say to me, I don't have time to do all that. What would you say to that?
I would say that it has nothing to do with cutting out time that's not in practice. And I know that sounds weird because we always cut out time. And of course, if you can cut out the time to emphasize it. But coaches don't realize the impact they have on athletes, even when they're not giving volleyball feedback. Giving athletes the environment to have conversation, to have that relationship with the coaches, reinforcing them and being like, it's okay to make mistakes as long as we are learning in the mistake. It's okay that we're having a bad day. It's okay that we lost. Obviously, it sucks. But did we lose for no reason? Or did we lose to learn, like you were talking about COVID? Is it for nothing or did we do something with it? I think throughout practice, just being like, we are in a learning environment. We want you guys to be better at being early with your platform. If that's your emphasis and just reinforce like, hey, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. You don't realize as a coach how long that goes. Luka is very tough. He is a Slovenian man who is very, very good at what he does. And I had to have conversations with him like, Luka, we can't talk to, like, we can't do that. Not like talking like but he's so passionate that girls would take it like he's mad at me. I'm like, no, guys, he's so excited. He's excited because he knows you can do it now. So having that relationship with athletes is giving them the opportunity to be like, okay, I know Luca now. Like, he's not mad. He's excited. He's pumped. He wants us to get better. He cares so much about us, but sometimes it gets lost in translation in general. Like, I know Julie before used to be, oh, Julie's so mad right now. I'm like, Julie's mad? Julie's chilling in the corner. What do you mean she's mad? But if you don't know Julie, you don't know. Because she's just, move on, stop cheering, let's go. Like, that's how she is. And I love that. Every time I see coaches that are on the court, storming the court, I'm like, oh, they don't know Julie Doan. Julie Doan would be so angry right now. Like, but I have that relationship with her. I have the comfort with her. I have the comfort with Coach Doan. Like, Coach Doan may be sitting in the back of the gym, but I know when Coach Doan comes up, Coach Doan is saying something important. Like, you better be listening because he's watching every single move you make. But other people could be like, not that they've ever, but like, oh, why is Coach Stone sitting in the back? Like, why is he not standing over here? Like, it's just perception is so different. And then when you have that relationship and that opportunity to grow with your athletes in the bus, in the restaurant, in the locker room, in passing, like, that shows girls who you are. And it gives them that, oh my God, like, it's okay. Like, I can make errors. Like, Julie's not actually mad at me. But not knowing Julie could make it feel like they're mad at you, To your question, like, it's not putting stuff on the side and making sure you carve out 30 minutes a day to talk about mental toughness. It's make sure to create an environment with these girls that they're comfortable. Because it's so hard to come out to a head coach and tell them things. Like, as a young athlete, I mean, I'm very outgoing, so it wasn't really a struggle for me. But I know girls who I'm like, you need to go have that hard conversation. You need to, because if you don't, he's never going to know how you feel. So just creating that throughout every practice, throughout every game, literally in every chance you get to interact with athletes, do it. I know it makes such a difference. In at least my life, it did. I felt so comfortable making mistakes. And I would go up to Casey's office and be like, Casey, you're not doing this right. You can't do this. And that's not easy. Like, I was playing in a Division I school, but I was so much more mentally tough then than I was that I was able to have hard conversation. I keep going back to our conversation because I feel like conversation is the biggest thing in sports, especially now with everything. But yeah, I think creating a good environment, an open environment, is really important.
Awesome. Good stuff. I love it. So since we have our GOAT here on the podcast, I took a quote from the GOAT, Tom Brady, on mental toughness. So our quote today from Tom Brady is, mental toughness is an attitude centered on doing the best you can in the present while believing you can do even better in the future. So I would say, Priscilla, you have touched majorly upon this quote, but what else can we bring to the table on mental toughness while using this quote from Tom Brady?
So actually, there was a thing that I was talking to someone about the other day, and it was like, oh, let's get 1% better the other day. I don't know if you guys ever say this, like, oh, let's get 1% better every day. It's impossible. If we get 1% better every day, we're going to be 365% better. Like, it's just not attainable in my eyes. Like, I don't think an athlete can be 1% better every day. Can we get better every week, every other week? Can we get better every day? Yes, but I think 1% better is like, you can't really see what 1% is. And for athletes, it's so hard when you can't see your progress in short term, how good you're getting. Because you want to see results. And how do you see results? Passing. But passing, like, how can you understand what 1% better is in comparison to a 2.3? Like, girls don't process stuff like that. So I think understanding who you are in the present, even if it's bad that day, you can't be bad at everything. I tell my girls this all the time. You can't be bad at everything. You might be bad at serving that day, but you should never be bad at serving because that's the most important. But if you're bad at serving, you better be the best dang passer that day that you can be. If you're bad at passing and serving, you better be the best dang hitter you can be that day. Whatever you're doing, you have to try to be the best. And if you suck at every single thing that has to do with volleyball, then you better be the best dang teammate you could ever be that day. And if you could be the best teammate that day, then you've won in that day. Because that's 100% of what you can give at that time. So I do Peloton workouts, obviously. And it's two things. It's like you can't go into a space and doing the same thing and expecting something different. So that's just one of my things. And another thing they always say is like, give me 100% of whatever you can today. So if you can't turn it up all the way 5 notches on your Peloton bike, then just give me whatever you can feel like you can give me. And that will be successful in your eyes. So I think comprehending that is very big, to be like, oh, wow, I suck, but this is 100%. I'm going after every single ball. I still have a hole in my elbow from Julie if you want to see it. She said, if you guys don't go for every ball, we're ending practice. So then I pop my bursa and I have a hole in my elbow, but that's beside the point. But I knew even if I didn't get the ball, that was 100% of my effort at that moment. So yeah, I may suck and I'm going to pout now, but you better give 100%. Every ball, even if you shank every ball, I'm zoned in and I want to pass every ball perfect. May not happen, but just being able to be like, I suck, but I'm still going to go.
Priscilla, you're our guinea pig that started way back when you were young, and now all the way this part in your life, you put up with us being real hard on you and having some tough conversations with you. I think that there were some times in me and Coach Carr career that we would argue about who doesn't want to coach you. I don't want to coach you, you coach her. Because we knew we were going to have to put our dukes if we were going to coach you. Everything you said today is personal, real stuff that you went through and not just some ideas, some pie in the sky.
This was perfect. Perfect timing. Perfect episode that Lauren put together. Perfect seeing you the other day. You were on everybody's mind because we just saw you. Because you don't come around anymore now that you're in law school. So since you happened to come around the other day, you were in the front of everybody's mind. Like, we need Priscilla here on this. And so it worked out perfect.
I think the last thing I want to say is, I think a message that athletes need to know is coaches wouldn't tell you things if they didn't think you were capable of it. And I know you guys used to tell us that all the time. Like, we wouldn't tell you if we didn't think you were capable of it. Like, the amount that they care shows that they know that you're able to do it. Like, when I do my lessons, I tell the girls, like, I'm going to tell you. And if you don't change, and I'm going to start being quiet. And then you're going to know that I stopped caring, because you obviously don't care enough to try for me. And I'm not here because, just because. I'm here because I want to be here. Like, I don't have to do lessons in my backyard in the middle of law school doing a million things, but I choose it because I love to coach these girls. And I'm like, I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be telling you this if I did not think you were capable. Because I sometimes I'm like, I don't think she's very capable of doing that technique right now. Like, we're going to move on to something else. But that's just the truth. And I think letting athletes know, I wouldn't be telling you this if I didn't know you couldn't do it.
Priscilla Hernandez, thank you so much for being our special guest today. It was such a privilege to have you here. And we really hope to all our listeners that they enjoyed listening today to all the wisdom that she gave us. So thank you for tuning in to The Culture Keepers, where we've explored the fascinating intersection of sports, culture, and excellence. I hope you found today's episode insightful and inspiring. Remember, the lessons we learned from the field can be just as valuable in the boardroom. Have a question you want our Culture Keepers to answer? Email us at culturekeepers001@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends and colleagues. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube and our Instagram and TikTok accounts. Stay tuned for our next episode about culture and the teams who keep them.